Welcome to Laguna Niguel City Hall. Welcome to the Laguna Niguel Human Trafficking Town Hall. We greatly appreciate your being here tonight. And as we begin all events here at City Hall, I'd like to ask Councilman John Mark Jennings to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Laguna Niguel. Welcome to your City Hall. If you would, please join me in saluting the flag of our nation. Veterans may salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Be seated.
Thank you, Councilman Jennings. Now he's going to run across the hall to our youth committee meeting. Our youth committee is 15 of our high schoolers who advise the city council on activities for our teenagers in the community, and they do a fantastic job. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. We have some people that I would like to introduce who have joined us. And first I'd like to introduce the mayor of San Juan Capistrano, Mayor Carrie Ferguson. And a councilman from the city of Aliso Viejo, Ross Chun. Okay, and representing Assemblyman Bro's office, Sharon Campbell. She is somewhat, there she is. And representing Senator Bates' office, Candace Burrows. And Rhonda Reardon. And did I miss anyone? You all have come in so quickly. And I am Councilwoman Elaine Gennawey, City of Laguna Niguel. Thank you. Well, I really do want to thank all of you for attending tonight. We realize that it's been a long work day, but your presence here tonight shows your commitment to caring about your community and to be informed. You know, we have an excellent quality of life here in Laguna Niguel, and I would much rather be talking to you about the wonderful improvements that we're doing at Crown Valley Park, or the programming that's taking place at our senior center, or even what neighborhoods are next to get their streets repaved. But there is an issue that we must talk about, and we must acknowledge it. Because if we don't acknowledge that human trafficking is occurring in our community, it will continue to flourish. If we don't acknowledge that human trafficking is occurring in our community, then we can't do anything to prevent it or to assist the victims. There's no shame in being a victim. The shame is on us if we don't do anything about it. If we don't help the victims leave the life. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. Orange County is both a destination due to our affluence and also a corridor between San Diego and Los Angeles. And on a daily basis, most of us drive past hotels where this is occurring. According to the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force, in their most recent victims report, and I'm going to read these to be sure I get them right because these are stunning statistics. California is the top state for human trafficking in the country by over 1,200% compared to the next highest state, Nevada, which is 300% higher than the third highest state. 3 of the top 10 California cities for human trafficking are in Orange County. 28% of human trafficking in California occurs in Orange County. According to pimps across California, Orange County can yield prices 2 times that of neighboring Los Angeles and San Diego counties in both sex and labor trafficking. 22% of perpetrators or Johns in California are from Orange County. This is why we are here tonight talking about it. Tonight's town hall speakers will define what exactly is human trafficking, What happens to the victims? What happens to the perpetrators? And what can we do to prevent it in our community and legislatively? The speakers have a lot of information to share, so they will not be answering questions during their presentations because that question may be answered as they continue to speak. We will have a question and answer panel at the end of the presentations for anything that has not been covered. And each of you have an index card that was left on your seat. You can write your question on the index card, and for confidentiality, because we know some people may be a little uneasy about asking some questions, just write the question down. When we get to that portion of the program, one of our volunteers will take the cards and we'll bring them up to be sure that your questions are answered. You each have a program that lists tonight's speakers, and on the reverse side of the program provides the contact information for these resources, and the inside of the program is for your own note-taking. You also have a blue response card. Please put your contact information on that response card. The reverse is blank, purposely, for you to write what areas you would like to be contacted on or work on. Where do you think you'll be most effective? And we'll collect these as you leave later this evening. You know, when I got ready for tonight's town hall, this starfish pin was glittering on the countertop, just staring at me. And I wear it tonight as a reminder of that story of the couple who were walking on the beach, and they came across thousands of starfish on the sand. And the man said, "There are so many. I can't possibly do anything. There's just too many to help." And he didn't do anything. And the woman picked up one starfish, put it back into the ocean, an environment where it would thrive, and said, "I can save this one, and it makes a world of difference to this one." So think of that when you're listening to the speakers tonight. And what difference can you make to one person? What is your call to action? Is it raising awareness so that either the signs are recognized or that phone call to a hotline is made, or so the customers are shamed so that the demand is cut? Is it raising funds so that survivors can receive housing and the professional counseling that is so necessary for them to become a thriving member of our community? Is it being a youth leader to start the conversation with our children and our teens? Or is it advocating for legislation? Think, what is your call to action on human trafficking? So our first two speakers have worked together for several years now, and how that has come about is part of their story. When I'm done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Orangewood Foundation is one of the leading providers of services to current and former foster youth. They help almost 2,000 foster and community youth annually prepare for independent adulthood. Orangewood is proud to be a leader in increasing awareness about sex trafficking in Orange County and throughout the United States, and for providing a solution to young women who are seeking to leave the life. The Lighthouse is a residential program for survivors of sex trafficking in Orange County. The Lighthouse is staffed 24/7 by Orangewood employees who have the experience and training to understand this unique population and offer specialized, individualized support. It is more than just a place to live. It is a place for survivors to heal and to begin to create a new life for themselves. Ori Freeman is a survivor who works tirelessly to raise awareness of sex trafficking and to advocate for victims. Please welcome Jim and Ori. Okay, now the video.
First night is the longest night. He probably walked for like 30 minutes in the fields.
it feels like forever. And nights after that, just kind of like, where else do I go? Who else do I have? Who's gonna come for me?
I started doing a little work in Hollywood up in a place called Covenant House. And there were a lot of kids on the streets, and we thought they were prostitutes and didn't know it was sex trafficking at the time. We thought they were young girls that just wanted to go make money and they could leave anytime they want. I think the shift started happening to where we realized these children are actually victims. They're not out there by choice. They're being forced, they're being sold, they're basically in slavery.
It's a big problem in Orange County, and it's probably one of the biggest problems the county faces based on the amount of victims you can see that are out there on a daily basis. As soon as we change to seeing them as victims as opposed to prostitute, everything changes for us.
As a kid, I was broken. My home became unsafe. And there were two men that played a big part in my mom's life that ended up just molesting me. I was angry because people lied. I was angry that this was supposed to be my family and they didn't protect me. I was angry that no one believed me. I was angry that no one could hear my voice, no one would hear me out. I began to run away. I was a runaway, and literally the first time I ran away, in 72 hours I was approached by a pimp. I actually didn't know at first what I was getting myself into. I had no idea. And we just had a conversation. I had nowhere to go. He told me I could sleep there. He would make sure I'm okay and I'm safe. 30 seconds, I told him my whole life story. So that made me weak, it made me vulnerable. He knew no one would come after me.
These human traffickers are master manipulators. When we were speaking to one of the human traffickers and we were debriefing him and what he told us when we asked him, how do you pick your victims? And one of the first things he said is that if they have low self-esteem, I got them. If they've been victimized, whether they've been molested or raped at a young age, that's even better for me. So you got food, shelter, and here I'm going to take care of you, the safety part. And then you couple that with a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl from the foster care system, run away from home, doesn't have any structure there, and you mold those two together, now you can see why they are so successful at what they do. So when you talk to the survivors and the victims, and when that question is asked, has to really understand. One is, what are they going to run away to? And secondly, what were the threats in place there if they did leave? And the odds are that they're going to run into just another human trafficker or back to the same situation they ran away from when he found them.
Like my first night, I probably turned about only like 7 tricks though that first night. Because I was startled. Multiple nights, probably like, it depends on how much I make or how much he's telling me what quota I have to get, but probably like to 14, man. 14 to 15. Sometimes it'll go up to 20 if I'm out there that long, if I start at like 10 o'clock.
Ori was 11 when she was introduced to the life. And if you think of your daughter, your granddaughter, your niece, any child at 11, you can't even begin to think that would happen. And she got branded at 12, with a tattoo on her neck. And she just had these horrible things happen.
And so we started asking the questions of the victims. If there was a place that you can go that was a home that really understood your situation, it was geared to exactly the type of person that you are and the help that you needed. And so far they've said yes. We haven't tested it because it doesn't exist quite yet. So that's where I think this will fit that need. It's a very specific population with very specific needs because of everything that comes with it. It's this blend between a domestic violence victim and a sexual assault victim.
I think one of the things that's made Orangewood so special over the years has been Orangewood's, the board and the staff's desire to try to take care of every need a foster child might have. And today what we're learning and seeing is this human trafficking issue is significant. It's real, it's happening in our community, and this is different. It's not like our transitional housing program where we can just give these kids a place to live.
years, we've had probably, I think I counted was 17 survivors come through. And only 2 or 3 have actually succeeded because we can't give them the services they need at 2 in the morning. We can't give them the care and the love and the support they need when they literally come from being beaten to being safe. And Orangewood, again, being at the front, says we need to develop a special program for them.
This home, each individual in there is going to get one-on-one coaching, counseling, support that makes them feel secure, that gives them a feeling that they can make it, that they can get out of what they've been going through and begin to start a healthier life.
And there is hope, and people are learning about what's going on and what happens when the street lights go off.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me back there? Thank you. First of all, thank you for being here. I want to get right to it and be, aware of the time and all that. I thought the best thing I could do before introducing Ori is kind of bring it home right away. Tonight we're talking about domestic sex trafficked children and young adults. In other words, children born and raised in the United States. It's a horrible problem across the world, but we're not talking about that tonight. These are all homegrown. And I thought, I want to take one moment for everybody to understand, as we are here, there are children being sold and young adults being sold by pimps, by gangs, and you'll hear about it tonight. As we are here right now, they're being sold. Mid-Orange County, North Orange County, South Orange County. So I thought the best thing I could do to bring it home right away to Laguna, Niguel, and to all the areas around, I went on one of the websites last night. Those of you might be familiar with Backpage, or at least hear that it got shut down. A couple of months ago, big news, Backpage shut down. That's a site, probably the biggest site in the nation, and definitely in Orange County, that sells young adults, children that are saying they're 18, and young women who have pimps who are being sexually exploited. When we did presentations, Ori and I do a lot of presentations together. One Saturday, from 1 to 9 o'clock, I went and counted ads. They have escorts and they have body rubs, okay? Escorts is what it sounds like. Body rubs are basically sex the same way. There were 571 ads in an 8-hour period in Orange County. And there were 126 body rub ads. So I thought, I'm going to pick a city, and I picked Irvine because, every of the years seems to be voted the safest city in the U.S. or whatever. There were 51 ads for escorts and 27 ads for body rubs. And I want you to think for a second. Irvine, and I'll talk to you in a minute about Mission Viejo, Laguna, Niguel, Laguna Beach, all of those places. Who is dating in Irvine? Nobody from LA is driving to Irvine. Nobody from Santa Ana and Garden Grove are driving to Irvine. Really think about this. We were talking about this before. The people that are dating in South County and in Laguna, Niguel, and in Laguna Hills live in South County, in Laguna, Niguel, and in Laguna Hills. And that's the reality of it. I got a few little statistics. Last night I just went on Backpage, like I said, and this is the watered down. It got closed. It got shut down. The adult section, it says censored, 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 censored. But these pimps and gangs and everybody, they turn around and they go to the dating site. So now if you say women seeking men, dating, it's the same ads that were in the adult section before. So they figured out a way to get around it. It's not as large, but it probably will be. Last night, 6 girls from Laguna, Niguel, 16 from Laguna Hills, 17 from Mission Viejo, 112 from Irvine, 29 from Lake Forest, 19 from Laguna Beach, and 13 from Dana Point. Now you think about this. Now, not all of them are adults, even though it says 18. Each one of those girls are going to have 5, 10, or 15 dates. You don't get a hotel room for one date. So you do the math on that. Who's dating in South County? I'll tell you a very quick story. Brian, a friend of mine, teacher at Edison for 20 years, lives in Lake Forest. And, oh, you already got it up there. She's so good. And so we're down in his house, Ori and I are, and he wanted Ori to come speak to Edison High School students. So we had dinner. It was a Tuesday, Wednesday night, whatever, about 7 or 8 o'clock. We're in his living room, and he goes, well, it really doesn't happen in South County, right? And I go, Brian, there's, he had his laptop. Got him to a website. It said, put Lake Forest in the search box. And he does. About 8 ads show up. I said, give me the first ad. It was a 19-year-old girl. I call and I go, hi, this is Jim. I'm looking at your ad on Backpage. Blah, blah, blah. We talk for a minute, and she goes, would you like in call or out call? Anybody know what that means? Out call, they would literally come to Brian's house. She would drive to Brian's house in Lake Forest. And I said, I'll do in call, which means I'll go to her. And she says, I'll text you the address. 4.1 miles on a Tuesday around 7 o'clock. I had a date. So as you hear everybody, understand, we're not talking about Garden Grove, Santa Ana, LA, Riverside, San Diego. It's horrible all over there. Now for the rest of the night, every time I get up, go like this. Because you want to hear Ori talk. Not me. Ori is amazing. She just turned 22 a few days ago. And she was trafficked from 11 to 15. In other words, she had 2 pimps. She was 11 to 15 years old. And she'll tell you her story, amongst other things. She currently helps, educate cops, educate DAs, educate doctors and nurses and teachers. She's on the state CSEC advisory board, in other words, commercially sexually exploited children. She goes up to Sacramento 3 or 4 times a year to talk to policymakers, help them understand the problem. She goes to high school. She goes to juvenile hall. She goes to jails. She is just amazing. She is one of the strongest women I've ever met. I love her to death. And here is Ori Freeman.
All right, thank you everybody for having me. You see the little pretty screen. Oh, it's a cute little kid. And I put these pictures up here because a lot of times people have these myths, and even growing up, people think that there's these types of kids, right? That survivors look a certain type of way, or kids that come from different type of backgrounds look like this. And I look pretty normal. I was really cute. You've seen a little bit about my story in the video, and I'll talk a little bit, just real briefly, about kind of my vulnerabilities and what went wrong. I'll share 3 things. Pretty much what went wrong, how it could have not went wrong, and what people missed. And the first thing is that I had a huge lack of communication with my mother. That's me and my mom. And she was my adopted mother, but that's my mama. She's had me since I was 2 days old. And I was a very sheltered kid. Although I grew up maybe not in the best of a community, I was very sheltered. I was shipped to the best schools. My mother kept me in athletics. I played baseball, basketball. I hung with the boys. I was a very active kid. And anytime you can give me a microphone or the spotlight, I took it. I say that because I was innocent. I say that because I was a good kid. There was no such thing as a bad kid. Something in my life went wrong. And I think a lot of that was after a couple of events took place. But I still wasn't a bad kid. I became a hurt kid. I became very angry and a very scared kid. A lot of times information that should have been taught to me was hidden from my mom. And I tell you guys this because a lot of things that I should have learned from my mother and inside of my household, I learned from friends. So whether it was about just social things, growing up as a young girl, whether that was puberty, whether that was drugs, and you starting to learn about all those different things in health class, those were not conversations that me and my mom had. I did grow up in a church home, so being that sheltered church kid, a lot of things were swept under the rug. We just didn't talk about bad things. We didn't talk about what happened when the street lights go off. We didn't talk about bad guys. We didn't talk about bad people. And there was a lot of fairy tales that were created in my world that did justice for only a certain amount of time. Questions that I had that I wanted to be answered, I couldn't ask my mom, and I didn't have a comfortable relationship with that. I had to turn to other people. My mother was very nurturing. She did the best that she could for the situation, and there are things that she could have done better. But I will say this, a village did raise me, and who should have been raising me 24/7 was my mom, although she worked a lot. And here was this kid that I was happy, I was full of light, and I just wanted to be loved. I had that, but I don't think that at a point I was really accepting that and really understanding what healthy love looked like. And I don't think my mom, she tried to give it as much as she could. She just didn't have the time. Okay? I say that because I do these prevention courses down in Corona Del Mar High School. We actually just got an email from one of the kids that started a club there, and she's an amazing, amazing young girl. And a lot of times, you know, there's huge statistics about girls coming from dysfunctional families and foster care system. But let me tell you the number one thing. If you have a young girl, how many of you guys have girls at home? Granddaughters? Okay. Because she is a young woman, because she is growing up in this society, in this generation, that makes her vulnerable. You know why? Because that little girl at 11, 12, and 13 years old, every time she looks in the mirror, she's going to find something wrong. No matter how much you tell her you love her, no matter how much you tell her she's beautiful, daddy and mommy loves you, that's just not going to be enough, unfortunately. Because of what she's up against at school, what she's up against in society, and what they're facing nowadays. I can tell you this, a lot of the kids that I have worked with, whether they don't come from the best of homes or whether they do have mommy and daddy, a lot of times I do see for the kids at Corona Del Mar is mom and dad work a little bit too much. And I can't talk to my mom about certain things. I can't talk to my mom about having a boyfriend. I can't talk to her about unhealthy situations. And that's a huge, very big problem, because that's in vulnerability when you don't feel safe or you feel like you can't even talk to your parents. I say that to you guys because it's the number one thing that as parents, people miss. You miss your own kids. You miss the most important things. We're afraid to tell them the truth, that there are very good people, but there are very bad people. Just the other day, I did a presentation at a high school, and a kid ended up exiting the class because a situation had happened, and she had been approached by a pimp and didn't even know that, didn't even understand what was going on. And the number one thing that the teacher that I spoke with at the time was her and the mother don't really get along. And I can imagine being that 14-year-old kid and not being able to come home and tell mommy what just happened. Because that doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen in my neighborhood, and those things just don't happen in good places. My biggest message, this was me at, what was I, 14? Oh yeah, 12 at this photo. This is my graduation photo. This is my mother, who's now deceased for 2 years. This is a photo, I don't know if you guys can really see. This is my tattoo. I was already starting treatments to get it removed. I was 12 years old when I got that. This is kind of the process right now. You can hardly see it on my neck by an organization in LA County, Homeboy Industries, that removes it. I was 12 years old when I got that tattoo. Number one, the tattoo was the name of my pimp. So a part of that, and I think maybe they'll talk about it a little bit later, is a lot of times you get branded. And you're branded with the pimp's name because you're a piece of property. That is a way that you are identified between other pimps, and that is a way that you are identified between other girls. At 12 years old, I had that tattoo on my neck. At 12 years old, I walked into a McDonald's in a donut shop with a large tattoo, and not one adult ever asked, was I okay? Not one family member ever asked, who in the heck put that tattoo on your neck? Not a counselor, not a community member, not a woman of faith. Not a wife, a mother, a father. I wasn't anyone else's problem. Number one mistake, I wasn't your problem. At some point, someone should have interrupted in my life, and unfortunately they didn't. You know why? Because they seen this kid. They seen a kid with a large tattoo. They probably thought that I was gang involved, or they thought I was already going through teen pregnancy. I had a lot of labels at a very early age. At 12 years old, I was labeled a bad kid. At 12 years old, people didn't understand that that wasn't my choice. So instead of people seeing a 12-year-old kid, 11-year-old baby girl, they seen a kid that may have been in trouble and a tattoo on her neck, and maybe her parents just didn't do a good job. I graduated high school at Fullerton College. My mother was there. And people, I think the biggest thing, people want to see this. They want to see the success out of a kid. They want to see their kids have great lives. Or you meet kids of struggle, or kids that have had maybe not so much of a good upbringing, or kids that are have experienced just different types of things, and you want this for them. But the biggest thing I'll tell you is that you can't get this kid unless you help this type. You're not going to ever see this if you don't have the heart or be willing to open up the eyes or just ask that kid that may need help, is there anything that you can do? That would have never been possible. That girl that graduated high school, that would not have been possible if I didn't have somebody in an organization that stepped up and said, what has happened to this child is wrong. What has happened to her, it needs to stop. And somebody needs to help her. If no one was willing to give me a hand, which was Carson, I don't think that I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have walked the stage so gracefully and proud if I didn't have that. For 4 years of my life, all I was looking for is love in all the wrong places. I was looking for stability. I was looking for support. I didn't know where to find resources at 14 and 15. Back then, things wasn't so nice, and it was just, my world was different. I will tell you this, it was very hard for me to accept help, even if I encountered it. You know why? Because normal was very different from everyone else's. My normal was being abused. My normal was laying on my back 10 to 15 times a night. My normal was being hit upside my head. That's my normal. My normal is not getting tucked in at night and being read a nighttime story. My normal is not being hugged and saying, I love you and I care about you. That's not my normal, and people didn't understand that. So when everything got hard, people left. People gave up because maybe this is just a bad kid and we can't help her. And I was scared. I was alone. And that's not my normal. I'm not used to people like that. When Jim came into my life at 15 years old and Orangewood stepped in, I was very, very broken. I had very bad trust issues because everyone in my life that could have helped me decided not to. Everybody that encountered me and stepped into my life, I was just a big problem that nobody could handle. And all it took was one man in an organization to lift my head up and say that this wasn't your choice. I'm sorry for what has happened to you. And at this point in your life, you got a choice, and you got to fight for yourself because nobody else is going to do that for you. And Jim, this organization, Orangewood, has took many, many blows from me. They've took a lot of emotional abuse, and they were willing to put in the work. I think my biggest message to people that work in the field with kids or come encounter kids, you think and you come in with this amazing heart and you want to save us, or you want to save these women and you want what's best for them. Let me tell you something, that is not your job. Do not get that mistaken. Your job, anytime you encounter them or however you can help, is to get them to the next stage of their life. That is it. Not everybody got the good end of the stick of Ori. Everybody didn't get to be in the bleachers when I graduated high school. Jim was fortunate enough to get the good end, but still some abuse. And you go in and you have to know that you guys are mothers, you are grandmothers, you are teachers, you are councilmen, that you are still wives. You have everyday lives. You can't commit and overcommit to something that you know you don't have time for all the way. But you can give as much as you can, and you can give as much time as you can. I think that has always been my biggest message, was that someone came into my life and didn't expect to save me. What it was is they were willing to fight for me because I couldn't fight for myself at the time. They were patient, they were kind, they were loving. And no matter how hard it got, they stuck with it. Because they seen this kid, but they seen much more. They seen the hope. They seen the strength. They seen the resilience in me. Because at the time, at 12, 13, 14, I did not see that in myself. That was not possible. Because out there, I want you guys to understand, being out there, there's a different type of living. Every day of your life, you live to survive. Every single day. And maybe just today, whether it's a Thursday or Friday night, maybe I don't want to die this night. maybe there's actually something to hope for. And I will leave you guys with this. A lot of people may think kids like how I was, or my survivor sisters, are hopeless or they're weak. Let me tell you, they are some strong individuals, man. It's something inside of them that keeps fighting every day while they're out there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Ori. Hard to say much after that. Thank you. No, don't be sorry. We're glad you're here. Okay, so our next group of speakers are from both the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force and HEAT, and I'll tell you what those are. The Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force is not a single agency, but a virtual organizational structure that's a collaboration of law enforcement, victim service providers, nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, and the community. The purpose is to work together to protect victims, prosecute offenders, prevent further perpetration of the crime, and partnership building. In order to adequately handle the complex nature of human trafficking crimes and the wide range of victims, including both foreign and United States nationals, the task force was formed in Orange County in 2004 to help address various concerns, from enforcing laws to taking on victim-centered approach of helping victims of this crime. In 2013, the Orange County District Attorney launched a vertical prosecution unit called HEAT, Human Exploitation and Trafficking. HEAT works with the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force to go after these modern-day slave owners while taking a comprehensive approach to solve the problem of bringing together community stakeholders. Tonight, we have 3 speakers representing this collaboration. Kelly Manley, Deputy District Attorney of the Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit, Sergeant Juan Reveles of the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force, and Nicole Stratman, Senior Social Services Supervisor. Please welcome them.
Evening, everyone. Usually Ori steals all my thunder. You know, it's hard to follow her, right? But what makes it good is how much more can we say? We're just going to get into what we are actually doing, because there is no, for lack of a better word, selling what we're going to be talking about. You know, every time we follow her, especially when you look at her age, that she got introduced into the life, and that's what they call it. They also call it the game. And what we've realized is that the game, the word is used because we're just kind of playing around. The older ones seem to use the life more because they've been in it for a while. But the young ones, it's the game. You in the game is what we're going. And by the way, I stepped out because as we speak, my team is looking for a guy that's trying to lure some juveniles from this area. Right? So we hope we get him tonight. We think we got him identified. Just a regular person. Right? And I was telling Councilwoman here that I didn't even look up where the city hall was at, because we just spent so much time here recently on a long-term case on residential brothels. And Jim talked about a website. That's one website that he was talking about. I can think of 5, 6, 10 websites that do the same thing. So modern-day slavery, I don't know how else to convince you of it when they decide what you're going to eat, when you're going to sleep, what you're going to wear, who you're going to talk to. Or he didn't mention, but if they talk to the wrong person, they're going to get a beating, right? And obviously the branding. How much more do you be convinced when we talk about modern-day slavery? It's not a hyperbole. It's not an exaggeration. It's precisely what that is. And also what I like that she mentioned is that we speak of quotas, you know. They make a lot more money here than San Bernardino. I know the prices. That's why they come to Orange County. Why are they here in Orange County? Because it is seen as an affluent county, and they are right. because I get to go up and down the state, and I think I send some of my partners sometimes pictures of these beautiful resort cities that I'm in, like Visalia, Stockton, Fresno, right? Fresno's really nice in the summer, south side of Sacramento. And the reason I say that is because when it comes to juveniles, we spared no expense as a task force to find them. Anywhere in the state they go, and if they leave the state, I got friends in Nevada, Las Vegas, right? So this is the effort that we give it. Also, I think it was Tuesday, we were just down here at a local hospital because there was two 18-year-olds who got beat really good right by their trafficker because she broke the rule. She was out of pocket. And how she broke the rule is that she told the customer, the John, her room number before he allowed her to do it and then give him a chance to leave. She ended up in the hospital for breaking that rule. That gives you the idea of what this life is about. Now, how does it manifest itself here in Orange County? So we know what human trafficking is, right? It's here in Orange County. Here's the main reason why. The money is here. The beaches, it's a vacation place, right? You got the beaches, you got the hotels, you got the airport, you got Disneyland, you got everything. That's why they're down here. But what does it look like here in Orange County? It looks like this, it's on the street, what we all think about. Well, there's only two tracks, two streets where the sex workers walk up and down, and that's on Beach Boulevard or Harbor Boulevard. Everything else is off of hotels, residential brothels, massage parlors, in-calls, out-calls. They'll come to you, go to them. Probably 20% is off the street, what everybody seems is the traditional, what we think of at our age. 80% is all over the rest of the county. If you have even the smallest of hotels, you have an issue in your city. So this is why it's important, this awareness part that comes out there. Because I tell you this, I've been in law enforcement for quite a while. I've never seen anything like it where that phrase that you hear, it takes a village. She described what that was. This is the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force. It used to be just law enforcement were in a task force. I got a group of, older ladies that donated what our soft interview room looks like now, a sofa and all that. Guess what? They're part of our task force. They changed it from us, how we interview them. It's this entire community that's in place here. Now, and this is, I'm glad I already kind of started up because let's talk about, it's a horrific crime, but us as a society have made a decision that when it comes to juveniles, they're afforded more protection. We've made that decision. And so that's where Nicole comes in because she's with social services and we partner up with them because unfortunately it's a big problem because countywide, 80% are from outside the county. My task force, 90% are from outside the county, these girls. And last year, 55% of the victims that we recovered were juveniles. Our two youngest has been 13 years old, right? And one of them, I think, yeah, she gave birth already with from the pimps at 14. She turned 14 and she gave birth. So that is the extent of the problem here. It's all around here. San Juan, San Clemente, they get what comes up from San Diego. They'll make the stop here. And so South County gets from both directions, not only because of the money. They're up there, they come down here, and San Diego comes up. That's what happens out here. Now, let me give you what happens when we run across a juvenile. Obviously, our whole priority is to find them. And so when we come across a juvenile that is most likely from outside the county, our efforts are to rescue the juvenile, but more importantly, for us as cops, find the trafficker. And we're successful the vast majority of the time. And when that happens, this collaborative that she's been talking about goes into action. Bring the juvenile back to the station. As a matter of fact, if I can, if we go proactive looking for a juvenile, I call Nicole and she gives her heads up. And the reason I do that is because we don't know what time we're going to find them. And unfortunately, it's the late hours, wee hours of the morning where we find them, but they always come back. Even when we find them in LA County and there's stuff going on over there, we bring them back to Orange County because we know what's here. We know how we work with social services. So social services comes out, victim advocates come out, we're out there a good amount of the time. I think you were on a couple of our last ones. Yes, the DA comes out at night. right? I mean, who would have thought that? They're out there with us. The only rule they come out with us, they got to stick with us throughout the entire part. I think last time when you went out was 4 in the morning, somewhere around there? 4 in the morning, because of the effort that we give it to. That's what's in place here. And I think I'll let Nicole go into, she gave you a little bit of her personal stories, who the victims are, these juveniles. Okay, and we're kind of stick with juveniles because Ori's here and we're talking about them. And as I said, that is our top priority. In fact, I mentioned San Juan, Mayor. A while back, one of our first cases that we ran across where the traffickers are using their children against them as leverage was one of your hotels down there. And her baby was, I think, 6 months old. We found her, and he took off. And she didn't know where her baby was at because he would go out with the baby. Once it was done, she'd get the baby back. And once he found out that the customer was beating her up, you figure he's supposed to protect her, is what they tell them. He took off. And I think we tracked him. I mean, we spent all night, and we found him up in Palmdale. When we found him, he didn't have the baby with him. So I actually lied to him. Right? We get to lie once in a while. Whatever I told him, I said, I don't care about you. I just want to tell you where he left the baby. And left him in some crash pad that he finally took us to go see him. Gave me the baby and go, oh, we're arresting you as well. He wasn't too happy with that, but I'm glad. I get to lie once in a while. That was a good one. It's a good white lie, right? Those are good. So if you want to go into the victims.
Yes. So I'm with social services. This seems really loud, huh? Okay. Okay. I'm with social services. In 2014 is when Senate Bill 855 came into play, which told us that human trafficking, sex trafficking of minors was a child welfare issue. Prior to that, when a call came into the child abuse hotline and we were told that the child was being prostituted, we said, oh, well, she'll be arrested. That's a law enforcement issue, and we don't have to worry about it. And even at that time, I think social services didn't feel very comfortable with that because we knew that a minor can't consent to sex. However, when it was said in a way where she was choosing to have sex for money, then all of a sudden it became okay. But it really isn't okay. If you really think about it, and I think a lot of us probably really felt deep down that that was not okay, and that I'm really glad that the laws did change and now did basically force us to have to respond to it. And I know with social services, that's a very comfortable place for us to be. We're glad that we're responding to these calls now. So we're getting calls from the task force, just like Juan said, and we will respond in the field 24/7. I have 6 social workers that I supervise in my department. I work in emergency response. We respond to all child abuse cases in Orange County, but my 6 respond to CSEC cases, commercially sexually exploited children. They're specially trained to work with the youth who are being exploited, and they, like I said, will respond 24/7 to the task force calls. They will go out into the field, they will meet with the youth in person, and they will try to build a rapport to try to find out where she's from and how can we contact her family and safely get her back home. There's a lot that goes into the assessment of that because we want to make sure that her parents understand what's going on, they have the ability to protect her, that her exploiter is also either in custody or not making threats to her or her family, which oftentimes they are, so it may not be safe to send her home, even though a parent wants to keep her safe. We may not be able to do so, but that is what we're doing, is we're going out to see if we can safely send her home. The victims that we have seen in Orange County, like Juan has said, has primarily not been from Orange County. It's destination being brought here, but we do have plenty of girls from Orange County. A lot of foster youth. There's foster kids all throughout the county, all the way down to South Orange County. We have foster homes, and those are very vulnerable youth that could easily be exploited. And so we do see a lot of our own in foster care coming through as being exploited, and we will, of course, respond to those. What else was I going to say? Sorry. Can
I add something?
Yes, please.
So the juvenile, this is how it manifests itself here in South Orange County. They are social media, and they are lured with the promise of modeling. That's the girls that we get from down here. That small percentage that we get happen to be from this area. Modeling, and it's just escorting. You're just going to be escorting. That's it, to make the money. And each of them has their reasons why they want to make the money, right? Do they want to keep up with what they're doing? They're not getting the money. But that is the issue that we are seeing down here. Dana Point, high school graduates down here. I mean, one of the last ones, she was 17. She had already graduated, very smart girl, graduated already high school early, was already taking college classes. It was the modeling that lured her in, right? And, you know, as we're looking for this trafficker, you can't be, this is what they look like. Like she said, you know, already said they're across the board. This is what it looks like. And this guy did not look like the last 10 that we gotten, but we followed the evidence, and it was him. And now he's looking at a very good time. That Kelly's going to get into that at the fun part, you know, where they get to go away for a long time and what they're looking at.
But that reminds me of where I was going, is that we had a lot of calls from law enforcement last year, from the task force responding to all those calls in the field. Now we're getting a lot more calls from mandated reporters, from concerned citizens. We've had 39 phone calls this year from various agencies, including law enforcement. Last year we had about 29, but the majority were law enforcement. This year a lot more are from other people, and which is a really good thing because awareness is going out, and it is a mandated report now. So if you are a mandated reporter and you suspect a child is being sex trafficked, then you must call the child abuse hotline. The child abuse hotline is 714-940-1000. And you can call, of course, as a mandated reporter, you have to, but even if you're not a mandated reporter, you can call, you can consult. If you're not sure if that's what's going on, you're welcome to call and discuss with a hotline worker. If the hotline worker doesn't know, then they will usually call me to further discuss and determine whether or not that would be something that we would respond to. In fact, I think the case that you probably were consulting right now was a call, was that through us? Yes, it started with us. So we got the call from a mandated reporter, it wasn't law enforcement, that this youth was possibly being sex trafficked or on the potential of being. And we got the information, social worker went out and investigated, sure enough, there's something going on here. So we engaged law enforcement and they do what they do, and now they're looking for the guy. Hopefully they'll get him. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so we're getting a lot more from the community, which I think is really good. This is underreported because children do not self-identify. They don't identify themselves as a victim. Before we see them in the child welfare system, they've usually been in the life for about 2 years before we actually come across them. So we're wanting to be able to get the awareness out there so that we can identify them sooner and do some intervention sooner. But like Ori said, we know when we make our first contact, we're probably not going to make a huge difference right then and there. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to plant a seed. We want to let them know that Orange County cares. The social worker that you talk to, the teacher that you talk to, the nurse that you talk to, the concerned citizen out there does care, and Orange County cares, and we're here when you're ready. And I think I'm going to pass it on before I take up too much more time. Do you have you do.
No, you're good. Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I'm a deputy district attorney with the Orange County DA's office. I'm part of the HEAT unit. Right now, there are 5 felony DAs and 1 misdemeanor DA in our unit. We started as 2 felony DAs, and then after that added a misdemeanor DA. After that added a 3rd felony DA. After that added a 4th and then a 5th. Why? Because our caseloads were way too high. Right now, open cases, not already been prosecuted, not in warrant status, open cases that we are currently prosecuting for felony pimps and human traffickers is about 120. Currently. Juan gets us these. The task force brings in a lot of the cases. We also have all of the other agencies. Today, right now, Irvine is shutting down a brothel, literally as we speak. Santa Ana, yeah, it's awesome. Santa Ana has a vice unit. One of the leaders of their vice unit was under Juan's direction for a couple of years and really became an expert in human trafficking, and now goes out with his unit to the streets in Santa Ana, it's a nationally known track, and combats the problem there. We have the sheriffs in Stanton especially. We have Costa Mesa, who is super active. Irvine is obviously active. We have the sheriffs down in South County. If you think that South County doesn't have a problem, you're wrong. I can speak to it because of my own personal experience, not only prosecuting these cases, but having come with police officers on ride-alongs. The last time I did a ride-along in South County, it was in Laguna. And we had men believing they were speaking to prostitutes, but actually speaking to our sly cops posing as prostitutes. Come. One of the gentlemen who was there, who was arrested when I was there, is the director of human resources for a local county. Why does that happen? Well, men want one thing, right? Men are willing to pay for that one thing. And the pimps and the traffickers are bringing the product being these women, to where the money is. Where's the money? Right here. They make way more money in Orange County than they do in LA. So they come on down. And that's why we have as many cases as we do. We have talked to many women who have been in the life, and many pimps even, they'll talk to us, or we can listen to their phone calls as they call from jail. And they talk about why they come to Orange County. Thankfully, they also talk about how they never, ever, ever want to come back to Orange County because we don't mess around here. I took some notes because I knew I was going to forget what I was talking about. What we do as a unit comes from realizing our mistakes as a unit. At the DA's office, and I think probably police officers were the same way, and I'm sure that Ori can attest to this as well with her experience if she ran into police officers or prosecutors, is the mentality was the girls on the streets are the criminals. They're a nuisance. They need to be arrested. They need to go to jail. If we clean up the streets, because we have citizen complaints, then we can clean up the problem. And the guys, the sex purchasers, well, they're usually coming in with fancy lawyers and saying, my wife can't find out, and I'm going to lose my job. And we're saying, you know what, we don't want to spoil your economy, we want to spoil your marriage, and the girl's going to jail, so we'll figure this out. That is the wrong way to do it. Thank you. So we flip that on our head. One of the things we do is we prosecute the Johns. That director of human resources from the local county, he was convicted of soliciting prostitution. Nothing less. He got no deal because he is some big shot. In fact, we should hold him to a higher standard. So we prosecute. I'm currently prosecuting felonies, but when I had that assignment, so prosecuting sex purchasers, I learned from a defense attorney that my nickname was Kelly No Love Manley, because you can expect to get no love from Kelly Manley. Because, yeah, I am not changing your charge. I am not lessening your probation. I am not waiving something that we do here, which is cool that Johns don't like. We will publish your name with your photograph on our website. Just to kind of piggyback on a couple of things real quick, is that something that is important to know too is how dangerous this crime is. Obviously, take a little baby, an 11 or 12-year-old. I was just doing an outreach through my office with a 5th grade class filled with 11 and 12-year-olds, and every day I went, I looked at these little girls and thought, you are babies. You are actually little babies. And that's how old Ori was when she was on the street with a tattoo on her neck, sleeping with multiple men a day, really being raped by multiple men a day. These little babies. That is a heinous, disgusting crime in and of itself, but these women, that's not the only thing that's happening. These women are actually getting forcibly raped by sex purchasers. They are getting robbed with guns, with weapons by sex purchasers. They are getting assaulted not only by their pimps, but by the sex purchasers, and they are getting murdered. Our office is prosecuted and is continuing to prosecute and actually has one in trial right now, either pimps or sex purchasers who are murdering these females. It is a dangerous, dangerous profession. And despite that, these men are so manipulative that they convince these girls, very vulnerable, very young girls, that this is what they should be doing. as wild as it sounds, the case that Juan was just talking about, where an 18-year-old was in the hospital in Irvine 2 days ago. She was beat bad. She was taken by an ambulance to the hospital. That's my case. I actually filed it today. She, while she was with the police officers, was crying because she loves him. The investigating officer told me today she is now saying she wants nothing to do with the case. She doesn't want to press charges. She wants to drop the case. And that is, I think Ori can probably talk to this, and I know Jim can as well, when he said they've helped 17 and maybe 3 have been success stories. It's because this is the norm. They are manipulated, they are stripped of all of their dignity, and this is all they know. And as Nicole was saying, we are trying to plant the seeds where we can. So where we come in as an office is to dry up the demand. If there's no demand, then there's no need for supply. And also throw these pimps in custody as long as we possibly can. And we really, I think Juan can attest to this, that we don't mess around here in Orange County. We throw the book at them.
You know, I wanted to address the demand part, because that really is our issue in South County. When you talk that 90% are from the outside, from my unit, 80% from the rest of the county, our issue is that. So we won't go too much into it, but we have developed a plan to deal with the demand part. And part of that plan is the publicity. That case that I was telling you about that was down here was about an eight-month-long investigation that I used to be down here in this entire area. I mean, this is how much money he was making. He hadn't laundered this money because he had it in his storage locker in Lake Forest. He had $500,000 in cash. I say that because now we're going through the process. We got his case, found some of the girls. We are going through the process of these thousands of sex purchases that are on his phones and all that other stuff. And I think so far we filed on about 20th that we were able to identify. And you're talking 20 that are, doctors, dentists. I'm trying to think the professions. That's down here. We are dealing with the demand part, because for as long as that's here, that is going to happen, okay? And I know the reason I interrupted said, tell them that's the norm, because we go into our investigations knowing the girls do not want to cooperate or become a victim. So we work our investigation. It takes us longer to do this. That guy that she's talking about, Irvine, he had left her, beat him up, and he was gone. And by the time we started talking to him through her phone, pretending to be her, he says, I'm at the 5 and the Grapevine. I'm not coming back for you. We tried and tried. We rarely give up. Tried and tried night and night. And he wasn't going to come. She goes, he's not. He's never left me like this. He's not coming. Like, all right, we called it off. And he's like, well, where are you at? And I had just gotten home. Other guys lived down here in this area. We rushed back. We coaxed him into, tricked him, again, lied to him, lies. He came back to the hospital to pick her up. Why did we know he was going to come back for her? Money. Those 2 girls are the ones making my money. I learned the talk conversation. I know you did it because you had to do it. I get it, and all this stuff. I understand. Okay, you got it this time? Come back to pick her up. And we were waiting there for him. So he's looking at good time.
Yeah, his maximum is 26 years in prison. So hopefully we can make that stick. Yes. And I just thought of one more thing, that I used to have the misdemeanor assignment, so I spoke to many, many, many women who were charged with prostitution, who I learned about their story. And while we slam the guys, be it the sex purchasers or the pimps, we try our best to help the women and not convict them of any charges, because we genuinely believe that they're victims. I think Ori can probably attest to this better, but my personal experience, and I'm sure Juan's as well, is probably about 95, if not more, % of these women have pimps or human traffickers. I would say the women I spoke to, maybe 80% of them said, nope, never, ever, ever worked for somebody, never. But they are. They're lying. They're protecting them. Through the course of all these conversations, myself or my colleagues had asked, what is the question that we could ask to help you? What is the question law enforcement could ask to help you? And the response that came over and over was so humbling and so mind-blowing, because it's the simplest thing in the world. And the question that I heard from many girls was, ask me if I'm okay. That was it. And I implemented that. And when I would speak to these women in the hallway of court, I said, I'm assuming you have not been asked this question by anyone in law enforcement before, so please let me be the first. And I'm asking it genuinely and from the bottom of my heart. Are you okay? And the second those words were out of my mouth, 9 times out of 10, the face just melted and the tears started pouring. These women need help. They probably, maybe that isn't enough to get them out, but hopefully it's enough to plant that first seed. And the next time they're asked, are you okay, they're remembering, okay, I've been asked before, these people really want to help me. And that's what we're trying to do as well.
I want to say this and then pass it to Niguel because we neglected to talk about this, although Ori was here. And one of the girls that we just recently found, this was in 2011, that she was one of the first victims. We started doing this victim center approach to kind of switch there. Her name is Jessica from Indiana. And how he lured her over here, remember master manipulators, he was looking for someone to spoil. She was 20 years old at the time. And so that's what she wanted because of her life. That was the key for her. And with that, I wanted to see if Niguel can address the factors and why these girls are so vulnerable, especially the younger. And we keep saying younger because even the adults we find, we ask them, when did you start? I was 13, I was 14, I was 15. So we're talking to a 25-year-old, but she started as a juvenile. And that's what we keep on this mode here.
Time is just about up. I think the cards are coming. Okay, so one of the things I want to say to speak to that is 99.9% of the referrals we receive where the allegations are of exploitation have prior child welfare investigations. Allegations of sexual abuse, physical abuse, general neglect, which includes exposure to domestic violence. That is what we're seeing come through our system. That is what we're seeing as our most vulnerable victims. And what that is trauma over trauma over trauma. It's called complex trauma. And then when the exploiter comes into play, there's a bond that's created, and that's called a trauma bond. And that is why that victim said the other day that she still loves him. And so it's very complex and take a whole lot longer to explain what complex trauma is and what trauma bonds are, but that's what this is about. And that's what's so hard for us to make much progress in the beginning, but where we just continue to plant those seeds. And part of the reason why victims often will go back is because when somebody has experienced trauma after trauma after trauma in their life, that is what becomes the norm. I believe that's what Ori said. And to be able to feel something, you need to feel that excitement or that danger feeling because you want to feel. We all want to feel something, right? But when you've been traumatized over and over again, it's very hard to feel that in moments of normal, to get normal feelings of like love and intimacy and that kind of thing. So to have the danger aspect come into play makes it where the person is feeling again. And that's where the cycle goes around and around. So I think that's about it.
3 simple words. Are you okay? Yeah. When asked sincerely and genuinely, think about the impact. Are you okay? Most trafficking victims say that had they known the methods that a perpetrator uses to groom or coerce their victims into sex trafficking, they would have been able to protect themselves. They would have been able to ask for help. They would have known that they should be talking to someone about it. Veronica Stevens founded Action Force Network to provide our youth with the tools necessary to educate them, to equip them, and to empower them to live in the digital age. So please welcome Veronica Stevens.
Hello. Okay, well, I always enjoy when I can talk to adults because I spend my life talking to teenagers. Don't be jealous. Okay, so who are our little angels? The group coming up, this generation, we are on the fence of what to call them. They're either going to be called Generation Z or the I generation. I generation, I think, is a little bit more appropriate, named after the iPhone, but also because this is the first generation that actually thinks we care, and they post selfies of themselves where they are behind the wheel of a car when they're getting ready for school, and they take pictures of their hamburgers. I don't understand. It's what they do. The reason being is that we were told not to raise our kids in front of the TV. That would be wrong. So instead, we gave them our iPad. And they were raised with technology. They were raised with YouTube. We were raised with, depending how old we are, we were raised with Brady Bunch, Bill Cosby. They were raised with reality TV. Everything in their life is real time. Their brain, if you do a brain scan on someone as old as I am, a mother of 5, grandmother of 1, my brain scan will look entirely different than a 15-year-old's or a 10-year-old's. Their brains are actually now wired for technology. That's why when a teenager is asked to call a friend on the phone, they will actually look at you in sheer panic. They will text message, they will Snapchat, but to carry on a conversation, their brain is no longer wired to do so. So we can get extremely frustrated with them. The reality is, we did it to them. Technology did it to them. They are a whole different species. Another thing is we have a lot of going on about the millennials. We've got some frustrations going on in the workplace because we get to deal with these little princes and Prince Charmings. They are way more concerned about making a difference than they are about making a living, and it shows up in their work habits. Don't we love them? That's the millennials. With us, when you asked us when we were younger, what did we want to be when we grew up? We wanted to be doctors, lawyers, nurses. We wanted to be firemen and policemen. A survey just came out, a research. They just went ahead and surveyed elementary age and high schoolers, which are the I generation. You know what the #1 profession that they want to be? A YouTube celebrity. That is their #1 profession. The second one that they desire with all of their heart to be is a blogger. The third is somewhere in the music industry. Now, all of this actually ties to trafficking. All of these kids have targets on their backs. I have now spoken to thousands and thousands of teenagers. I didn't used to like them. Now I adore them. They are rascally rabbits. Yes, they are. They have the attention span of a gnat. And so I get them for about 45 minutes, or if it's a block schedule, I get them for an hour and a half. And I am being very calm with you, but when I'm in front of teenagers, it's like they're drinking through a fire hose. I am talking fast. We are playing videos. I am throwing candy. Because you know what? I can even get football players to ask or answer a question if promised a lollipop. It is amazing. And so it's very interactive, and I get to get this information into them because, as they were saying, there is no socioeconomic barriers. So let me tell you some of the stories that I've come up with in Orange County, some of these high schools I went to. I was in a high school right here. A teacher pulled me aside. It was the second year that I was in that high school, and she said, Veronica, I need you to see one of my students' Facebook profiles, which was a little bit interesting because teenagers typically aren't on Facebook anymore. And they're on Instagram because we went on Facebook, so then they exited Facebook as fast as they could. And now they're on Instagram and Snapchat. This one decided to keep his Facebook account active, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be using very harsh language. If I offend, you do not offend me if you leave. But we are going to be pulling back the veil because you need to know what's going on with the classrooms and our teenagers. We are in trouble. And I say that having been doing this for years, we are in trouble. And I'll tell you why it is as we go along, and I have a little snippet of time. So I'm sorry, it's going to feel like I'm skipping rocks across a pond because I'm literally going to go ding, 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 and we're just going to go on a fast and furious ride. Okay, next one. I talk about grooming. I talk about social media. I talk about the Romeo pimp, the CEO pimp, and then we go into the gorilla pimp. The Romeo one is the boyfriend that will groom and then sell the girl. The CEO is like he was saying about the models. It's the one who's going to promise them a lucrative career that they would never be able to get if not for this one agent. He's no more an agent than I am. There was a girl who was trafficked out of Seal Beach. She really on her mother's grave thought she was going to be in a P. Diddy video. Seriously thought she was going to be. She was taken from Seal Beach to Las Vegas. She was in a hotel room within 24 hours. When I get into the classrooms, I let them know, we play a game. Tell me the 5 top models in the world. You better know our kids know those. They're saying Kendall Jackson, Bella Hadid. They know all of them. We cap out about 8. Then I tell them, okay, we've got 7 billion people in the world. We can name 8 and we're done. If anybody comes up to you in the mall or on social media and tells you that he's going to make you an agent, he's going to make you a model, he is lying to you. She is lying to you. The top modeling agencies do not troll social media. They don't do it. They don't go walk Irvine Spectrum. They have, their phone rings off the hook with model wannabes. They have more appointments than they have time. If anybody tells you that that's what they're going to do for you, it is a lie. Keep walking. Delete them from your account. That's the kind of information that our kids need. This is the one that your parents, I'm so sorry that I have to tell you this. Yes, our kids are being tricked, they're being groomed, they're being deceived. But you know what the number one question boys ask me when I talk about this? And I have failed to see a classroom or school that this hasn't been asked. A boy will answer, raise his hand and said, yeah, but some of the hoes actually ask for it, right? I mean, some of them, not all of them, are tricked, right? And you know what I have to tell them? You're absolutely right. Some of these girls signed up for it. And you know what they signed up for? Fast cash. We have, as a society, absolutely conditioned our young girls to think that they are sex objects, that sex is no big deal, and they might as well get paid for it. And you know how I found that one out? I was given an awareness at a church. They asked me to come in, and because the presentations have been given really high markings, I'm very pleased. Now I'm being asked, how do you teach teenagers? Like, how do you do it? So I was giving a lecture on how to actually teach teenagers and what methodology you use. There were some teenagers in there on how to teach teens. I'm not too sure why they were there. But they came on up. One of the moms who was a pastor, so her daughter was raised in a church with these loving parents. The pastor called me the next day, this woman, and she said, my daughter sat through the presentation with me. I'm a little horrified to tell you this, but I think you need to know. She said, Mom, she's acting like it's a big deal. She's going, I have friends who do it. It's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't do it, Mom. What they didn't sign up for was a trafficker. What they didn't sign up for was having a gun to their temple, a knife to their throat. What they didn't sign up for was a life in captivity, working 7 days a week, hours and hours a day, and that once they did it one time, they took pictures and told them, if you think you're not going to report to me tomorrow, I will take these pictures into your school. I will show your parents. Everyone's going to know what you do. And by the way, it's illegal. So you're going to be arrested. The girl's 15. She's 12. She's scared out of her mind. She will report back to her trafficker. You want to know what we can do? We need to train them on social media. If you tell them that social media is the problem, this is going to be your reaction. This is their world. Social media is all they know. We have to actually tell them how to be safe on social media. When I am in the classroom, I will ask everyone to raise their hand if they have Instagram. Everyone will raise their hand. Keep your hand up if you have 100 followers. Keep your hand up if you have 200 followers, 300, 400, 500. When I get to 500, about 50% of the class lowers their hands. 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. We've got at least 3 hands that are still raised. Then I ask them, are you on private or are you on public? And then they'll say private. Someone who has 400 has their account on private. Why do you have it on private? Because it's safer. Perfect. How about you? Why do you have it on private? Because I don't want the whole world to see my stuff. I want to be in charge. Oh, you're going to be in charge if you're on private? Yes. Okay. That is the biggest fallacy. That is the biggest fallacy. The difference between private and public profiles. A public profile means the world can see it. It means they can come up on anybody's news feeds. Private means that friends, and they have 1,000 followers, as long as they're friends with that person who has 1,000 followers, all 1,000 of those followers have access to that private profile. Then they can request to follow. Then you've got the naive teenager going, well, I don't know John Smith, but I know Becky, and he's a friend of Becky's, so yes, John, I'll accept your friendship request. Well, John is a pedophile. And he ended up on the profile of a teenager who had a public one, and now everyone in the classroom actually has him on their profile and on their following because they have a common denominator. A friend of a friend is not a friend, and that is a mantra I tell with the teenagers. A friend of a friend is not your friend. They are to never, this is the number one thing that you need to tell your kids, never, ever, ever go into direct messaging or private messaging. That is where the grooming takes place. They will go ahead and post something on their public wall to see if they can get them engaged in a conversation. If they can just respond, even because they know they don't know them, but if they say, hey, you're cute, and then they respond, thanks, they've got them talking. And then they go ahead and private messaging. It's in that private messaging that grooming takes place. And the grooming is where then the hookups takes place. You want to meet me over here? After all, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. We've known each other for a hot 2 weeks. And I love you. It happens in a New York minute. Let me tell, I need to get to this really quick. Porn, our kids are being exposed to it. The average age of 8 to 11 years old. 89% of porn shows extreme violence against women. It is now the #1 sex educator for our boys. We will not get our arms around this until we get into the schools because they're not listening to parents. You have to be there, beat that drum, let them know that you care. It can't just come from you. The teachers are banging that drum. But when they bring in an outside party like myself, the kids perk up and they listen because I tell them stories. I bring it right home to them. Teenagers don't scare me, but I know how to scare them in the most positive of way. Bring them back to reality. We have to de-glamorize this. We have to notify the boys they are being groomed to be predators, and our girls that they are being groomed to be victims. And they need to be empowered to stand up and not click. And that somebody has to tell them that. Video games, really quick. This is what our kids are exposed to, is this. This one right here, video game. Notice the difference. This is a man who's been killed. This is women who are killed. This is an actual quote from one of the video games. After a man looks down and sees a dead woman, she said, it's a shame, or he says, it's a shame, that's a nice body on that one. And he said, well, she's still warm, how picky are you? That's on a video game. We have to be very careful about what our kids are watching.
Hey, thank you very much, Veronica.
Yes.
We appreciate that. And Veronica will be here after the presentation. I'm sure there's more questions, but as you all have seen, social media. Parents need to be talking to their children about social media. You need to know what your children are doing on it. You probably need to have them teach you what they're doing on it. But social media is a very important topic for all parents to be and grandparents to be discussing with their children. Okay, Senator Bates had to stay in Sacramento. There's some business that they had to take care of before the holiday weekend, but standing in for her is one of her policy advisors, former mayor of Mission Viejo, Rhonda Reardon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is, I hope, is this okay? I don't want to have feedback or anything. Is this all right? I'm going to move around. I'm talking to you, Curtis. Am I okay? Oh, this isn't on? Oh, I need to eat the mic. I'm sorry. That's a, Ori, can I have, who's got the little clicker?
I'll put it right next to the...
Thank you. Ori, you did a great job. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable. That is the hardest thing. I do want to just welcome all of you on behalf of Senator Bates. Am I doing okay? Oh, yeah, you want to find it for me, please? Thank you. Senator Bates, as Elaine said, is up in Sacramento, and one of the things that she has tried to do is to work on behalf of victims. How many of you remember Proposition 57 last year on the ballot? Okay, not very many. Proposition 57 was very poorly written. What it allowed is for people, criminals, who had committed violent crimes, that they were not allowed to be given consideration for parole. It actually allowed people who were criminals who were convicted of non-violent crimes or not violent crimes. The problem with it being poorly written is that the violent crimes were defined in the penal code. It left a lot of violent crimes out by using the penal code. And so this year, Senator Bates decided she was going to, with the help of Orange County Sheriff's Department, come up with a fix to Prop 57. And with that, that's it. Thank you. Yes, that's good. Okay, so this is the list of violent felonies that were in Prop 57, right here. These are violent, right? Murder, attempted murder, voluntary manslaughter, mayhem, forcible sex offenses, rape in concert, robbery, so on and so forth. Okay, so people that committed these felonies are not allowed, are not given consideration for parole after their first offense. Can you go to the next one for me, please, Curtis? He's helping me. This is the list that was left off. These are considered not violent felonies. These are considered non-violent felonies. And I made sure that I put the human trafficking right at the top of that list, in red, bold. Okay. Rape, sodomy, oral copulation, hate crimes, arson, solicitation to commit murder, bodily injury, domestic violence, all of those, if somebody is convicted of them, and we have, according to Ms. Manley, we have people in jail, in prison, convicted of these, and they are going to be given consideration for parole after their first offense, after they fulfill the amount of time that they're in for that. The sad thing is that people in Sacramento, and Ori, I don't know who you were talking to, but we got to get you in to talk to the governor, okay? Seriously, because the people in Sacramento, when Senator Bates took her bill in there that added this list of not violent felonies to the list in the penal code, they voted it down in committee. It didn't even get to the floor of the Senate. Governor Brown, before it was voted in, approved by the voters, I think it was more than 60%, approved it because they didn't understand it, they didn't read it, and it was poorly written. Governor Brown, when he was told by a member of our Orange County Sheriff's Department that it was that the things that he thought, he didn't know that these were not included, okay, in the violent crimes. But when he was told, he didn't do anything about it. And when I asked the person today, I said, so how come the people on that committee, Public Safety Committee, who were then told by Senator Bates, these crimes are considered not violent. People who are in prison are going to be given consideration for parole. Do you want these people on the street? They voted it down. So I will leave you tonight with this. Somebody in here is going to have to take up this mantle. Somebody in here is going to have to, after hearing everything that we've heard tonight, Ori's story, Jim Carson, Kelly, Lieutenant, are you a lieutenant? Sergeant, you should be a lieutenant. Nicole and Veronica. Somebody in this room needs to take up the role of advocacy to bring to light what is happening and to use Senator Bates's bill, and let's get behind it, because I'll tell you, she's smart enough, this, when it was defeated in committee, she is a never say never person. Your native Laguna Niguel person, never say never. She made it a 2-year bill, which means she can't bring it back this year, but she can bring it back in January of 2018. So whoever's in this room that wants to do that, come up and talk to me, and I'll help you put together a plan, but we've got to get this bill back, okay? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, well, thank you, Rhonda. It's great information, and that's food for thought for all of you. We need some advocacy for legislation. Now, at the beginning of tonight's program, I told you that you had some index cards. If you had a question, if you have written a question on there and would like one of our volunteers to pick it up, please wave it in the air and they will bring it up front. Okay. Lots of questions. Okay, do you find any interconnection between drug and alcohol recovery homes, homelessness, and trafficking? For whoever would like to answer that. And you don't have a microphone.
You want to do first?
Sure.
I would say no, mostly. People have the false impression that these women are prostituting to get drugs. I would say the vast majority of these women are not using any drugs. They maybe smoke weed sometimes, but that's about it. The place that they are coming from are group homes and foster homes. Other women are recruiting them, and by women I really mean girls. They have a pimp who expects them to go and get more girls to work for him because he needs more money from them. So a girl will go to a group home, make a friend. Friend says, this group home stinks, let's get out of here. I've got a boyfriend who can take care of us. He's gonna get your nails done and your hair done and buy you nice meals, come with me. Girl who's in the group home says, that sounds awesome, let's go, and there she goes.
So think about it this way. The misperception that they're all using drugs. Think about it, the trafficker, that is his product, that is what he sells, and you know what drugs does to a body or a person. And eventually he will lose control to the drugs. Nobody beats the drugs. So that's why they keep him off it. Don't mess up the product, and I won't lose control of it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are local hotel front desk employees trained to look for or recognize trafficking? And what can they do, if anything?
So we're doing a very big campaign that, it's just so much to do, that we are doing the hotel motel industry, to do these sort of presentation, this awareness, so that the GMs, the front desk, the security, and most likely the room cleaning ladies are the ones that see it first. So that is a campaign that we're going across. And mainly because hotels and motels do not have to cooperate with the law as far as providing information. That is their information, their business information. What we are finding that we are saying, hey, we're here from the Human Trafficking Task Force, that we're getting a lot of cooperation. But you'd be surprised at the high-end hotels that do not want to cooperate. Fortunately, they're the exception.
And when you came in, on the front table were some materials that I had printed off that you can find online, and there are checklists or bullet points for hotel employees, giving them pointers of what to be looking for. And a lot of that material is online, and it's listed in the resources on the back of your handout. What is most needed right now to help these girls get out of the life?
Probably, it's hard, there's so many things, but if there was a place, and I'm sure you guys will attest to this, you pick up a young lady and you have nowhere to take her. You don't want to put her in jail, you don't want to put her in juvenile hall. As a juvenile, you maybe have somewhere to take her. 18 and up, there's nowhere to help this young lady go, except back to a hotel. I think resources and programs for them to grow, but I'm going to hand the microphone over to Ori, because she'll tell it much better.
What? Oh. I think the biggest thing is housing, emergency shelters for these young women, housing specifically for CSEC. Actually, I do sit on a board that is, I do go up to Sacramento and San Francisco and talk with a lot of politicians. So there's a lot of shutting down group homes, which is a problem because there's no place to suit the kids, and then there's not enough housing for adults. So I think that if you can come together with your community members, or if you're capable of partnering with organizations to maybe start an emergency shelter or opening up homes, that would be the best thing. They need a safe and stable place. That's the only way that they're going to thrive.
I wanted to mention Orangewood Children's Home, as you've probably heard of that. And that is where a lot of these minors are being taken. When obviously where they're not taken to juvenile hall, if we can't find the parent or can't return them safely, then Orangewood is our next place for them. Unfortunately, it's just really not the best place for them. We don't have the proper training for all of the group counselors that work there. And we have a lot of kids in that home too that we are concerned about being recruited out of that home. And so Orangewood is really not the ideal place. So if you did think of that as a possibility, that we're really not wanting that to be the destination for the children that come into custody, and we really do need a home. We do need therapists that are trained in trauma and trauma bonding and being able to work with our victims that have had that. So that's another, I think, great need, is we do not have enough therapists out there that really understand this.
Thank you. What did Jim say to Ori that Ori took the help?
I think the hardest thing with people is that people can't be honest and people can't be real, and that's just something that's the truth. I've met a lot of people in my life. Can everybody see me? This is so weird. I'm sorry. I think the biggest thing with Jim was that Jim wasn't afraid of me, and Jim wasn't afraid to say what may have offended me or hurt my feelings, and it was just being honest, because that was the best thing for me. I will tell you completely, every person that I've come across, that these kids come across, that these women come across, they see right through you. Completely. You think you're telling a lie, they see right through that. You think you're being sincere, they see right through that. If this is just a job to you, or this is just something that you're doing for community work or by faith, it's the right thing, they see right through that. The best thing was him being honest and real, that at some point I did have to own up to responsibility. At some point I had to make a decision for myself. And I think a lot of people were scared to call me on my stuff when I just acted out on things or things didn't go my way. And I think it was also just being apologetic for everyone else's mistakes. And it was sincere. It was the first time in my life at 15, after my pimp, someone was sincere about caring what had happened to me.
So it's not just asking the question, it's the sincerity and the honesty that goes with it.
Don't ask it if you don't mean it.
Yeah. Okay, and what do you do or say if when asked, are you okay, and the girl says, I am okay, but you know that they're not okay?
I think that's it. Exactly what everyone at this table spoke about, is you just planted a seed. I tell a lot of times when I talk to Juan's officers, is that you set the tone for everybody else. You're not going to get the good end of the stick all the time, but the next maybe 10th person that's going to ask her, she's going to respond.
Thank you. How do you prosecute when your main witness or victim refuses to testify?
It's hard sometimes. I guess as long as we get them on the stand, I don't really care what they have to say. In fact, it's sometimes better for our cases, and I'll give you an example, is domestic violence, although human trafficking and domestic violence, while there's maybe manipulation or like Stockholm syndrome that are correlated, they're very different things. But when the victim takes the stand and says, nothing happened, I was doing it on my own, there's no problem here, I hate you, Madam Prosecutor, he didn't do anything. Then Juan and his crew, who are experts in this field, and come in and say, that's exactly what I was expecting her to say. Because these girls are in the hospital beat to crap after taking an ambulance ride saying, I love him. You don't expect them to take the stand and say, that's the guy who trafficked me. Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, it does. Sometimes it clicks. Sometimes by the time we get involved, we're the 10th person involved, and we're the 10th person to say, are you okay? And finally it clicks. Oftentimes it's not. My last 2 cases, within a minute of filing the case, I find out that the woman involved says, I'm not cooperating anymore. And such is life. That's like kind of what we expect when we file the case, is she's not going to be around tomorrow, so how do I prove it without her?
So knowing that, right, and this is where really this task force for cops that we were doing police work a lot differently before, is you understand the trauma bonding, you understand that she's going to be cussing us out, right? And so my crew, I mean, of course you were listening to it, but the more she is upset and cussing us out, the more you feel sorry for her, especially juveniles when you catch them on the street and their default is cuss you out because they're going to take you off and the cops are going to go, oh, well, get out of here. I'm trying to help you here and you're treating me like that? Okay, have fun getting back to Fresno, Sacramento, whatever it's at. So knowing all this, we spend the time and build our case knowing that a very small percentage are going to cooperate. And like I said, and so we build the cases so when we file it, she knows she's not going to cooperate. In fact, the pimps say, you're not going to find her. And their answer is, and our answer is like, I know, we're not looking for her. You're done here in Orange County. And it is very different here in Orange County. Before I do the next question, that's the best news I've gotten in a long time at a meeting. Our notes were here, since you were here, we're like, what are you going to do about this? And you just got it all. I mean, the fact, after this presentation, the fact that human trafficking is not a serious or violent felony, and there's adults in Sacramento that think, yeah, we'll get it in 2018 at best. This is ridiculous. So that Take a Village thing, please, somebody here, run with it.
And just to make that crazier, just so you all know, if you're convicted of a violent felony in California, you serve 85% of your sentence. So for a year, you don't spend a year, you serve 85% of a year. If you have a strike prior, non-violent case, but you have a strike prior, you serve 80%. If you have neither of those things, so it's not a violent and you don't have a strike, you're convicted of one of those, you serve 50%. And that's without Prop 57. So Prop 57 is allowing for parole even though you're only serving half of your sentence.
And what are the typical penalties for the pimps and the purchasers?
Okay, so felony sentencing in California is super, super convoluted and confusing. Pimps and panderers, mandatory state prison, minimum is 3 years, maximum is 6 years. That's for just pimping and pandering. If you do human trafficking of an adult is when you're pimping or pandering with deprivation of liberty, then your maximum is 20 years. If you do pimping or pandering of a minor, that's necessarily human trafficking, even without any deprivation of liberty. Just, it could be a 13-year-old girl who says, I really, really, really want to prostitute. I want to do it. Be my protection. Bring me to the track. Let me do it. Human trafficking, necessarily. The maximum for human trafficking of a minor is only 12 years. That might sound wild, that it's so much less than adults. It's not. The reason being is because that is without deprivation of liberty. So for an adult, you're depriving the liberty. If you human traffic a minor with deprivation of liberty, so you're giving that extra element, 15 to life.
Thank you. Do you ever encounter madams or boys being trafficked?
So the madams are in the residential brothels. In the massage parlors, usually they're predominantly Asian, so they're called mamasans. What happens on the street and the internet, the pimp, if he has what he calls his stable, that's his group of girls. He calls them their stable. He'll designate one as what we call, the term is the assistant pimp, and she is the one that then is in charge of the other girls. She's the one that may suffer punishment because the other girls were not following, and it all depends how much power he gives her, and he can take it away anytime. It's the manipulation part, and give it to someone else.
On that too, one of the cases that Juan has talked about a couple times where they were doing surveillance literally down the street, my colleague is prosecuting it, and as such I've seen the pictures of the women who were being pimped and pandered. I would say a large portion of them look like South County Real Housewives of Orange County moms. Literally 40, 45, some of them had children, beautiful blonde women, looked like you would see on Real House of Orange County, and they were being pimped.
There actually were some moms from South Orange County. It's the manipulation part, and then they need money, they find him, and so we put some good time in him. And he's actually, even though it was consensual, it was contractual, 60-40 split, but it still happened, it's still wrong. And because of the amount that we follow him enough, and the amount of women that we found, I think he's looking around 30 years. That is his exposure.
As far as the boys go, there was a case here, you probably remember this. It was just a couple years ago. It was a coach here in Orange County who set up a fictitious Facebook account, called himself Cindy, and friendship requested all the boys on his team. They accepted the request, and he did the grooming of those boys, got them into private messaging, and then she said, which was him, "I'll show you mine if you show me yours." So he sent them pictures of boobs that he Googled, but the boys took real pictures of themselves, thinking they had this relationship with this girl who happened to be their coach. Well, it worked so well for him that he friendship requested hundreds of boys here in Orange County with thousands of videos, not videos, but images and videos. And so obviously he was arrested, and he left a wife and children at home. But the boys were groomed on the internet, and then what made that cross over to exploitation beyond just that is he sold those images to gay porn sites. So those images of those boys are on the internet forever, and those boys, you talk about trauma. It is extremely traumatizing to know your coach did that to you, and all they ask is that they get the pictures back, and you have to tell them they're out there. We could never get them back. So yes, it happens to boys. It looks different.
How are you training foster parents to prevent a child from being open to trafficking or to being spotted as a potential victim?
We do have training going on for our foster parents. It's this kind of thing, the same thing, awareness training, what to look for, the red flag signs. It's all very new. And so we're starting to get some reports from foster parents. We have had some reports from foster parents. We have gone out on those calls and investigated the allegations as well. So we are in the process of training foster parents.
Okay, great, thank you. And then if you ask, "Are you okay?" and they say, "No, I need help," what is our next step, and what do we do to help?
The biggest thing is you have to assess the situation. There's a hotline, a national hotline, and it should be on everybody's speed dial. It's 888-373-7888. You can call that number, you can call 911 immediately. If a girl says no, and you assess the situation and you think it's safe, you may continue a conversation a little bit, but more often than not, I guess just follow your instincts is the best way to say it. If they say they need help, especially if it's a juvenile. But I would automatically call law enforcement, or I would dial a hotline number.
And those numbers are in the back of your program.
Yeah.
You can put them, I hope after tonight's presentation, everybody puts them in their cell phone. There's the national number and the Orange County number. Okay, thank you. Our speakers have agreed to stay after the program if you have any questions that you'd like to come up and ask them. But in respect for everyone's time, I know that some people do have to go to work tomorrow. So.
Wait. Just one quick thing. We're
Okay.
talking to 100 people, roughly. Please, for the sake of every child that's out there, can we be talking to 1,000 people tonight? Can you please not leave here and say, wow, that blew me away, and then go to sleep and forget about it? Your churches, your schools, your kids, everywhere, please spread the word and get people to learn about the awareness. Do not leave here without committing to yourself to talk to 5 to 10 people about this, please.
Well, and there's a couple of things I'm going to ask you to do tonight before you leave or later this evening. One thing is that this will be on the city's YouTube channel. So it'll be available in a couple of days. And just go to the City of Laguna Niguel's YouTube channel, and you can see this, you can share it. I know I had some scout leaders ask me, they wanted to bring some of the girls who were a little bit too young for this evening, but I suggested that they look at the video and then show what portions are appropriate and have those conversations. We need to be having those conversations with our children and our grandchildren so that they are not targets to be groomed or to be coerced. And tonight, I asked you, what is your call to action going to be? You've heard a number of ways that you can assist. And also, the Monsignor Urel and President Lamprecht, they are in the process of reaching out to the different leaders of our faith communities in our area to form a coalition to work on a number of issues that our faith communities have in common. So this may be one of them. So I urge you to talk to your faith leader to see if this is something that your organization, your faith community would want to be involved with. But I do have those blue response cards. I hope everyone fills them out. And on the back, you let me know, how do you want to be involved? How do you want to be contacted? We do need someone to take up that mantle for the legislative advocacy, because that's very important. I mean, it's shameful that that is not considered a violent felony. That is absolutely shameful that that would be allowed to continue. So I'm going to ask you, you know what, there's many scout leaders, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts here tonight, many leaders of youth ministries, and who want to be involved and want to do something, and may feel that maybe tonight's topic was a little mature for the youth that you're working for. And I'd like to provide an alternative for you. And that's how I first came upon the human trafficking and meeting Jim and meeting Ori. And that is the work that I've done with the Orangewood Foundation for their youth that are aging out of foster care. Because the youth that are aging out of foster care, they need to be supported. Think about the 18-year-olds in your home. Are they ready to be self-sustaining adults? They're not. Well, neither are foster children. So, so if we can keep them in school, keep them educated, teaching them skills so that they can be self-sustaining, that would lessen their vulnerability to be victimized. And the sad statistic is that without guidance, encouragement, and resources, within 18 months of aging out of foster care, 40 to 50% of these youth will become homeless. And if we connect the dots, we can see that they're vulnerable to becoming victims of human trafficking. So perhaps for the youth groups, maybe you want to work with supporting education and supporting life skills for youth that are aging out of foster care. But there are many ways to become involved. Please put that on the blue cards. Let's work together. I'm asking you to do a few things tonight. Jim asked you to share it with 1,000 people. I only asked for 5, but I like his number a lot better. Talk about what you heard tonight. You know what? Not only to raise awareness, but the pictures of the purchasers are online. I've seen them. You know, that is great. Everyone out there should know, if you're going to be purchasing, your picture's going to be put online. And everybody's going to know. And it is, yeah, they're holding up a little sign, and their name is on it. So we need to raise the awareness. There should be no dark corner for this to hide. We should shine a light so bright. There is nowhere in our community for this to hide. So I want you to share this with people. Like I said, I like Jim's number of 1,000 much better than my 5. I think of the ripples in the pond, but he's got the whole ocean. So that's great. So please, and identify your call to action. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Shame on us if we let this continue in our community. Shame on us. So what are you going to do? And I ask that you each think about that very carefully. And you know, it's going to be not just that you have to pick up every single starfish on the beach, but start with one, and start where your talents and your skills are and where your time is, so that when you do give, you're giving genuinely. Many of the services that are needed by the victims to become survivors are professional services that I can't do. I'm not a counselor, but I can do some fundraising to help places like the Lighthouse get counselors, to help them get housing. So there are more resources. I'm getting kind of emotional, so I need to check on my notes. You're going to be hearing next week, the Orange County Transportation Authority is going to have a Be the One campaign. That's their kickoff. Be the One. You're going to be hearing about that, and that's part of this coalition, and that's raising an awareness with the bus drivers on to be the one if you spot something suspicious. So many, many groups are working together on this. So on your response cards, please put what you would like to do and what you would like to be contacted about. And email me. On the back of the program is my email address. If you have any thoughts after tonight, email me so that we can, you know, continue this conversation. But please join me in thanking all of our panelists who gave of their time tonight, brought us this incredible information. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just sitting there listening to Elaine. Okay, so you have a lot of courage that you pulled this together. I know it took a lot of work. I was talking to her today and she was busy. But all of these people that you brought together, and meeting Ori and Jim, and just so you all know, I was a CASA, court-appointed special advocate. I had 5 kids, 3 of them all at the same time. They were all teenagers. I took the boys because I have very good boundaries. So, so they're right, you're right. It's very difficult, but they're worth it. I want to thank Elaine tonight, and on behalf of Senator Bates, you have made her so proud. And thank you, Sergeant. I'm going to tell her that you think that she's doing a good job by us. I'm ready to support you to be under sheriff. How's that? But anyhow, let's give a round of applause to Elaine for doing such a great job. It was unbelievable. Wonderful.
Thank you all. Be sure to turn in your blue cards. Stay in contact. Let's keep working on this together. Thank you.